AA trains a lot of us to keep the good without facing the bad. Like, I'll just take what I want and leave the rest. I don't believe in that. I don't believe you could swim in a poisonous river without getting poisoned. You're hearing every day that you're powerless, you have a disease, and all this other stuff that's super harmful to hear. That's not how brainwashing and propaganda and all that works. I just don't think that's possible. Hello, welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten. Super excited you are here today for this series on the stages of grieving Alcoholics Anonymous and recovering from recovery. This is part 3 in the series. Today we're going to be talking about bargaining. Part 1 is about denial. Part 2 is about anger. I will link them below if you want to start there and up here. So this comes from what's been called the 5 stages of grief. It's just a model. It's not a reality. It's not a fact. It's not in this order, but we're just using this as a model to find more freedom for those who are recovering from recovery. For context, I was in AA for 10 years and I left 5 years ago, and I'm deconstructing out loud with you on this channel. So let's dive in. Bargaining can be a normal part of the grieving process when it's applied to the dying, which is where the 5 stages of grief initially came from before it was applied to other areas. It could sound like, if I'd only done this, maybe they wouldn't have died. I know I have felt that before after somebody died. If I had done this different, if I had been there, if I had said this, if something. So I've definitely experienced that myself. You might have experienced that as well. After leaving a cult religion, a high control group like Alcoholics Anonymous, bargaining might sound like maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I can still keep the parts I want without unpacking the harm. Maybe I'm just being dramatic. Maybe if I had a different sponsor, it all would have worked out. Maybe not all groups are like that. That's not in the book. Like, when people say that's not in the book, I get that comment all the time. People are always saying, but that's not in the book. And I'm like, bro, you can't say it's not AA because it wasn't in the book. It's like, my sponsor was AA. I was AA. My home group was AA. The fellowship was AA. Everything that I experienced in Alcoholics Anonymous was Alcoholics Anonymous, not just what's in the book. To me, that's like a bargaining. It's like a denial thing too, where it's like, that's not in the book. I'm like, yeah, okay, but my sponsor told me that. And I was told if I don't take direction from my sponsor, I'm essentially going to die. So there's that. That's what happens to us in AA. I mean, could you imagine if there was like a chain store like 7-Eleven or Target or a gas station or a grocery store chain like Trader Joe's or whatever's in your country? Let's say it was so common that in this chain of stores that the people were sexually assaulted, that there was a name for it. Like, they called it the 13th step or something, because it was so common that this crime happened in these stores. And then you have people saying, well, that's not the store, that was an employee. Like, bro, but it's like happening at every store. So people try to separate certain experiences. Like, people will say, my own experience, that never happened, or I never saw that, or that's not in the book. So people will try to separate their own experience of what they think the program is, or what they believe AA is, their interpretation of AA, from the culture, from the big book, from the fellowship, from the meetings, the slogans, the sponsors, all of that, whatever. And this is like part of what the bargaining is. It tries to find a version of the story that doesn't hurt as much. It's not weakness. It's the way our brain tries to protect us from the full grief of what's going on or what was lost. It's kind of like our brain trying to make it okay so that we don't have to acknowledge it or grieve it. So we're trying to find a way that it wasn't that bad, if that's what we're doing. Because some people just think AA was just totally bad. So it might sound like, literally, it might sound like it wasn't that bad. Every group has problems. There were definitely some good people. I'm just sensitive. Or maybe it's internalizing the blame. Like, maybe I just didn't work the step rights. Maybe I wasn't willing enough. It worked for some people. I must be the problem. Maybe it's about the people who avoid the need for deprogramming. I think this is really common. We don't know that we've been programmed, so we leave AA and it's still fucking our minds up and we don't even know it. People will bargain with the need to deprogram even. They might say, like, I don't need to unpack all this. Maybe I'm overthinking things. This is just like a newcomer syndrome in reverse. Plenty of people leave without making it a big deal. Why can't I? Or maybe it's like spiritualizing abuse, like, oh, that's all part of my journey. Or maybe that's exactly what I needed at the time. Or God used AA to teach me lessons. Or I wouldn't be where I am today if all that didn't happen. So, some sort of way to justify the harm through, yeah, trying to make it right somehow with spiritualizing it, which is super typical in what AA trains a lot of us to do. Or trying to keep the good without facing the bad, like I'll just take what I want and leave the rest. I don't believe in that. I don't believe you could swim in a poisonous river without getting poisoned. That's my opinion. That is like super my opinion. But people say, I take what I want and leave the rest. I'm like, but you're hearing every day that you're powerless, you have a disease, and all this other stuff that's super harmful to hear. I don't know. That's not how like brainwashing and propaganda and all that works. I just don't think that's possible, but I don't know. It sounds like bargaining to me. You might disagree with me on that. Let me know in the comments what you think. When the truth feels too big to hold, bargaining can help us shrink down into something that feels manageable. It can keep us from having to feel the full weight of the grief, especially when it involves betrayal, coercion, or spiritual abuse. Bargaining isn't stupid, it's survival. This is us trying to survive what we went through, and so we can say it wasn't that bad. It's how our brain tries to avoid collapse. It's the mind's way of saying, please let this not be as bad as it seems. And it might be all at the unconscious level, like we're not literally thinking this. Sometimes bargaining is how we try to delay the deeper grief underneath the grief, realizing I gave my trust to something that didn't deserve it. Of course, this doesn't mean we have to throw everything away that we learned in AA. There were helpful things, I'm sure. A lot of us can say, yeah, there were things that I learned that were helpful, or tools that I learned, or whatever. Maybe not. Maybe you don't agree with that. I don't think it was all bad. I just think it's fundamentally harmful, and I would never go, and I never tell anybody to go. But maybe there's something that's still influencing your thoughts, your choices, or your identity that's worth unpacking here. Journaling prompts if you want to dive deeper. So you can pause this, do them right here, right now. Pause this, write them down, come back later, or just stew on these, contemplate, and see if anything comes up. What part of you still wants to believe AA wasn't that bad, if any part of you does? What are you afraid that might happen if you admit the harm? Have you told yourself that you can just take the good even when you know the harm runs deeper? What would it mean to fully face the truth? And I don't want to project my view on there, but is the truth to you that it's harmful? Because that's my view. My view is AA is 100% fundamentally harmful. So if that's not your truth, that's not your truth. You got to think critically, right? This isn't about what I think. So stick with what makes the most sense to you. In what ways have you internalized the blame for what happened in AA, if in any ways? Have you avoided unpacking your experience because it feels like you should be over it? Some of us might feel that way, like it was so long ago that I was in AA, or maybe it wasn't that bad or whatever. And there's no need that you need to unpack it. Obviously, the spiritual bypassing is such a huge part of AA culture and the way that it works. And so it's worth considering what spiritual lessons, if any, are you using to justify your pain, or even to justify your experience in AA, or in general. You are allowed to name abuse even if you learned something from it. And if anything, what do you gain by holding on to parts of AA, and what might it be costing you? Bargaining is how we try to soften the blow, but we don't need to soften the truth to survive it. You're not wrong or weak or anything bad for bargaining. This is normal. This is human. It's just navigating a massive shift, and our brain is trying to help us cope with it. But healing and growth, our next evolution, is kind of how I think about it. It doesn't come from shrinking the truth. I don't know. I just feel like when I'm just honest with myself, that it's more beneficial to me. Now, if you're familiar with the 5 stages of grief, you know that we land on acceptance. So maybe you're already through bargaining and you're already at acceptance. There's no need in going backwards and making something out of nothing. But if you're not there and you still have quite a bit of feels about your experience in AA, I do think it's worthwhile to look at the bargaining. I know, like for me, I feel like it did take me a little bit of time to unpack how much I loved and I guess respected whatever my sponsor versus the harmful things that she did. I felt bad. I was like, she means well. My friend was sexually assaulted by a predator in AA, and I told my sponsor, and she said something horrific. She basically told me to ignore it. She said, stay on your side of the street. And she said, maybe God is using his, literally, she said, maybe God is using his dick to get people sober, which is horrific. And the way that I bargained that at the time in my mind, now I didn't know I was bargaining it, but reading this, I can see that's what I did. I'm saying, well, but she has like, she's a good woman. She has kids. She has a daughter. She's a good person. She didn't mean that. But she's literally telling me that let the predator prey. Too bad, so sad about your friend. Move on. It's not you. It's not your side of the street. This is God's. Basically, she was like, there's your business, other people's business, and God's business. This is not your business. And I don't know. It's not cool. There are other things too. Like I remember she used to take things that I would say to her in private at her house. We'd meet once a week for an hour. And then at our home group, which we shared, she would share about what I told her in confidentiality and privacy. At group level, she wouldn't say my name specifically. She would say one of my sponsees. She had 4 sponsees. And so it wasn't, I just felt like that's not very like covering it up. She's not saying somebody I know. She's saying one of my sponsees. So there's a 25% chance then that it's literally me. And she's telling my vulnerable stuff at meeting level. And I kind of swept that under the rug because she was helping me so much. Yeah. So there can be a lot of things to unpack when we leave about what we experienced in AA. Again, I'm only using my examples because it might stir something up in you. Maybe there's something there for you to unpack. It's okay to feel grateful that you got helped by somebody, but to also be clear and not make excuses for them that some of the things that happened were totally fucked up. And so this is just picking it apart. I hope that this has been helpful. And the next video will be on stage 4 of grief. This will be on depression. I know when we leave AA, a lot of us can go through a depression. There's something for a lot of us called exit trauma, especially if we were fully indoctrinated into AA. I was a true believer. So I went through a period of time that could be considered like exit trauma. So like a post-cult what the fuckery, where it's like, I don't know who I am anymore without AA. I've been shunned by the community. I don't know which way is up, what I believe. My purpose is gone because it was helping the alcoholic who still suffers or whatever. So when I'm leaving the ideology, I have all of this up in my head to unpack. And so we'll be looking at that in the next video, which is on depression. And I'll leave a link below if you want to join the Deprogram community. It is called Deprogram Lounge. We got a book club, we got Zooms, we got resources in there, we got fun stuff and people chatting. So if you want to go deeper, join the Deprogram Lounge. I'll link it below. It is free, it is fun, and if you're feeling the vibe, that means it's for you. The invitation is for you. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.